Good morning, everybody. I will begin with a prayer. Om Bhurбhuva Swaha Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayat. Om. You are the creator of this universe, your source of all knowledge and bliss. You are self-luminescent, and we meditate on thee. May you guide us, guide our intelligence in the right direction. Om, peace, peace, peace. Today's topic is obstacles to meditation. And I think I would rather say right in the beginning, I'm no expert on meditation. Swami is, and any difficult question we will direct to Swami Nishpapananda. But like most of you who have been coming here regularly, I've been trying to learn meditation over the last 15 years. Maybe I have made some progress. A lot of times I go 2 steps forwards, 1 step backwards, and sometimes 1 step forward and 2 steps backwards. And it goes on. But there are many who have started meditation in their life at some point. They found it difficult or had some problems, and some people tend to give up. And I think instead of giving up, one should ask the question, what is meditation? What am I doing here? Do I understand meditation properly? Do I understand the obstacles in meditation so that one can make a progress? So today I will kind of focus on some of those things, what I have done. Like we do in medicine, literature search, we go back to the library and try to review a few things and learn from that, and I will share those with you. But by no means makes me an expert on that, so I just want to make a disclaimer right at the beginning. So come to meditation. The way we understand meditation in the West is different from what is said in India. Most of our scriptures call meditation Brahm Vidya, which means science of self-knowledge. Vidya means science or education. So we talk about self-knowledge, and self we're talking here is the Atma, the Atman inside, not the body, not the mind, but Atman is the one which is self. And as most of you know who come regularly to Vedanta, Vedanta says that Atman is pure intelligence, pure bliss, and pure consciousness. Brahman is pure consciousness, knowledge, and bliss, absolute, the infinite. Whereas Atman is limited, Brahman is limitless. But basically, they are both consciousness, knowledge, and bliss. It's like you take a glass, fill it, it's already filled with air. So just cover it up, and the air inside and the air outside. Air inside is limited, that's Atman. The limitless air, the absolute air outside is Brahman. You put the glass, open it, it's still there. It's still with the same air. It's like Christ said, I'm in God and God is in me. It's the same thing. When you talk about Atman and Brahman, both are the same thing. One is limited, other is unlimited. When we talk about limited, that's Atman. That's us. But Atman is covered up with mind. And then the mind is covered up with body outside. So that makes us. That's me, that's you. Atman inside, covered up with Maya, which is mind and the body. Now, mind is what we need to understand, because when we meditate, mind is the one which helps us, mind is the one which creates problems. The biggest obstacle is mind, and biggest genie to help us is also mind. And when we say mind, we usually say mind is over here. When we talk to patients, they say, I went to my doctor, I had pain in my stomach, and they did all the investigation, they didn't find anything. They said it's in your imagination, it's you're thinking about it, it's in your mind. But actually mind is not just in the brain. Mind is all over in our body. Wherever you put your attention in your body, that's where the mind is. Do you have a pain in your big toe? That's where mind is. If you're having a pain in your big toe, can you think about anything else? It doesn't happen. You cannot think about anything else. That's where your mind is. Some people who have amputations of their arm or leg, even after the amputation, they sometimes still feel the pain or the tingling sensation in that amputee, which is not there, the leg which is not there, what we call phantom limb. The leg is not there, but it's a phantom of the leg there, and they still feel the pain in there. So the mind is still there, which still feels the pain over there. Mind is not only limited in the body, mind goes out very frequently. It follows the sense objects, desires, follows the memories. You think about ice cream, your mind is right at the ice cream shop, picking out which flavor you want today. You think about some old memory, you were in Florida a few years ago, you had a good time, you're on the beach, and that's where your mind takes you there. You imagine you're lying down on the beach and having a good time. And you're thinking about that, imagining about that until you see the flashing lights behind you. The police car is flashing. Slow down, stop. Where are you? Why are you going so fast? So our mind takes us all over the place. So mind is not limited in the body. It's everywhere in the body and also leaves the body to go all over. They say the mind speed is faster than the speed of light, because within a trickle of a second, you can be anywhere you want to be. So mind follows the sense objects and keeps us entangled in this whole universe. From birth onwards, as we grow old or grow up, our mind keeps growing, keeps getting more and more attached to this world, to these objects. And this process goes on until we sit down for meditation and try to realize where are we going, what's happening. In Bhagavad Gita, in the second chapter, Lord Krishna describes the relationship between mind and body in a very interesting way in verse 62. Lord Krishna says, thinking about sense objects, and that's where it means that objects like gold, food, clothes, sex, property, alcohol, smoking, and all those things. Thinking about sense objects will attach you to sense objects. Grow attached, and you become addicted. Unsatisfied addiction turns to anger. Be angry, and you confuse your mind. Confuse your mind, and you forget lessons of experience. Forget experience, you lose discrimination. Lose discrimination, and you miss life's only purpose. And what is life's only purpose? Eat, drink, and be merry? Possibly yes, to some extent in the beginning. But as we progress, we realize that that's not the only purpose in our life. There is something more to it. So Lord Krishna again gives the answer in next verse. The answer is given in verse 65, which is, the uncontrolled mind does not know that Atman is present. How can it meditate? Without meditation, where is peace? And without peace, where is happiness? And that's the purpose of life, to look for limitless, unbound joy. What is unbound joy? Most of the time, our joy is bound to sense objects. Our happiness is bound to sense objects. They give us happiness. We like people, we get attached to people, they give us happiness. Next day, they give us problems also. We have relationship falling apart from the same relationship, person we loved for many years. There are problems, then you start hating that person. There are other things in life that we like. Food, for example, you like, and then it also gives you obesity if you do too much. So sense objects, they're not limitless joy. They give us both happiness and pain. The pure joy comes by getting direct contact with your Atman, with Brahman. That gives us endless joy or unbound joy. And meditation helps us to understand that, to go in that direction. So the goal of meditation is to obtain a spiritual experience that transcends the mind and intellect, a direct perception of Atman, pure joy and bliss, or what Buddha called nirvana state, or Vedanta says moksha. In simple English, it frees us from cycle of birth and death so that we can abide in pure joy forever. But at a lesser level, at our daily level, it also means that if we practice meditation regularly and systematically, then our physical and emotional problems find solutions. We live in a mature way, and all our artistic and creative faculties and capacities find full expression, and we are able to contribute to the welfare of our society and our family. Meditation provides us with a joyful living. We transform ourselves and transform those who live with us or people around us. Meditation is not running away from problems, and some people think it that way, that once you start spending time in meditation, you start detaching yourself from other things in life, and they think that maybe you're having problems and you're trying to run away from problem and find a solution in meditation. Actually, it is the other way around. Meditation basically helps you to face the problems with a different outlook, with a more insight, so that you can understand things better, so you can face them with confidence. But meditation is not an easy task. That's why so many failures happen and people stop meditating. So many disappointments happen, and that's why I'm standing here trying to review the literature today. In the 6th chapter of Gita, Lord Krishna says that meditation is like climbing a mountain. It's not something that easy. You have to really work hard at it. And there are many obstacles in our way. Most of these obstacles are actually very much our own, and they vary from person to person. Scriptures help us to some extent, but most of the time we have to really understand ourselves, our own obstacles, because they're different from person to person. So anybody who's really interested in the details, they should probably read some nice books like there's one Yoga Sutra by Patanjali, there's Raj Yoga by Swami Vivekananda. I find this book fairly helpful. This is meditation. There are different lectures by monks of Ramakrishna order published in England. And most of the lectures are actually from this book. And I'm sure Swami Nishpapananda can help the beginners to find a proper book for themselves if they are looking for one. So let's come to the obstacles. And the first obstacle is motivation. Obviously, anything you want to do in life, you need a strong motivation. It's not easy every day to sit down on floor, cross-legged, close your eyes, and try to take your mind away from the world and focus on God. And sit there for half an hour without moving. And do it twice a day. It's not easy. You need very strong motivation to do that. So that's where motivation is important. So if we want to evaluate our motivation, we should ask, do we really want to lead a spiritual life? The prerequisite for a spiritual life is a keen interest, a real desire to know the truth, desire for freedom from cycle of life and death, a dispassion for worldly things because they bring both happiness and pain and happiness, and that cycle goes on. Do you really want a freedom from that? Because without strong motivation, the continued effort that spiritual journey requires can never be sustained. Now, there's a difference between prayer and meditation. You can sit down and pray to God. God, give me this. God, give me that. I want this thing. I want Rams to win. I want Cardinals to win. And I want good house and good car and good job and all those things. Those are prayers. That's not meditation. Meditation means you really move away from all these things. You don't ask for anything from God, except, as I said in the Gayatri prayer, you ask God to guide you in the right direction, to learn discrimination. And once you have discrimination, then you have more wisdom and you can move towards God in understanding yourself, the world, and God. So that's what meditation is. Otherwise, one should just stay with prayer and not confuse the two issues. Sometimes some people turn to spiritual life under different life circumstances. For example, during the course of a happy and peaceful life, one may encounter a deep disappointment, some catastrophic problem in the life, death of a spouse or a child, loss of a job, diagnosis of cancer. Those kinds of things can make people sometimes become dispassionate, unhappy with life, and try to move towards religion to find an answer, to find support. So at that time, if you turn to meditation and want to sit down for half an hour every day and meditate, it's not going to work. Stick with prayers. Because as you progress in meditation, that disappointment that you have had is always going to keep pinching you, keep eroding you, stop you from focusing on meditation. It's going to keep haunting you, so that the progress will be very difficult. So at that time, one has to kind of sit down, review the life situation. Do we really want to move in this direction? Then I have to make compromises with the problem that I've had, have to find a solution to that, resolve the disappointment so that you can start thinking positive and move in the other direction. And of course, meditation will help you with that also. If you have a strong determination and keep meditating, stay at it, persevere with it, it will help you overcome those obstacles too of disappointment, and then you start thinking positive. So it works both ways. You don't have much motivation, you can't progress. You make motivation, you move on, that helps you to understand that problem too. So it's also true that disappointments in life remind us that there is a greater force in control of life, and we need to align ourselves with that force so that we can learn from our mistakes and move on. It's just like in that movie Star Wars, that Obi-Wan Kenobi says to Luke, may the force be with you. Just think about the force. Don't think anything else. Just focus on the force and let the force be with you. So that greater force, we need to align ourselves with that so that we can move in the right direction and help our motivation move in the right direction. So that's the first obstacle, motivation. Second is internal enemies. It's very important and very difficult. We all have that. We live with that every day. That helps us grow up in this world and some even to succeed in worldly affairs in many ways. But the same thing does become a problem for us. Now, in the Indian tradition, we say there are 5 main internal enemies: Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Moh, and Ahankar. Translated, they are desire, anger, greed, ego, and jealousy. We all have these. I don't think anybody who doesn't have any of these. Different percentages, different concentrations of all this makes us. They also make us blame other people for our problems. We tend to blame others because we don't want to see our own problem. We just try to keep our eyes closed from our own problems. If we want to progress in meditation, we have to be, number one, honest with ourselves, which means we need to make a list of our own weaknesses and our strengths. We need to understand our own, these internal enemies. Indeed, it may be a temptation to note only our strong points and ignore the weak ones. The fact of the matter is that chain is as strong as its weakest link. So we must make a corrective measures to control that weakest link. And the effective means suggested for controlling these internal enemies are introspection and self-analysis. Introspection is not easy because the moment you want to sit down and think about your own problems, your own relationship, think about your own jealousy, greed, egoism, the mind throws in a wrench, says, that's not you, that's somebody else. It's very difficult to really pinpoint your own problems to yourself. Do you think when somebody is angry and throwing things and you tell him at that time, introspect at this time, why are you doing this thing? He's going to really throw the chair at you. So it's very difficult to introspect at that time. Or somebody who's very jealous, and some people have a lot of pathological jealousies, and ask them that you are feeling jealous of somebody's progress in life, they're not going to accept you. Introspection is not very easy. And it takes a long time to learn to practice introspection. And same thing is self-analysis. It's very difficult to analyze your own behavior. Because once you start analyzing your own behavior, you find a lot of faults in yourself. And most of the time, we don't want to see our own faults. We want to blame other people for our faults. So introspection and self-analysis are very important if we want to progress in meditation. But these two corrective measures are very difficult to develop. But again, if you persevere in meditation and you know what you're doing, and that you need to, when you sit down for meditation, maybe first few minutes, 10, 15 minutes, just spend time in contemplation about yourself. Who am I? What am I doing? These problems that I'm having, why I'm having these problems? What is my role in that? What is my contribution in that? How can I not kind of detach myself and see if we can improve things? If I can make a change, if I need to change myself to improve things in the relationship, what do I need to do? That's introspection and self-analysis. The next one is laziness, listlessness, and idleness. We all know that. You start meditating in the beginning, and after about a week or 2 weeks, a month, you start becoming lazy, don't want to spend that much time, you're rushed, something is happening, you need to go to work, you need to go and buy something, there's a sale going on at famous bar, and you have to get there on time. So we cut short of meditation and do other things, and then that again becomes a habit. Sometimes once you have established yourself in meditation, a few months down the road, you notice that now you're starting to sleep in meditation. After 10 minutes, you start sleeping. It becomes very difficult to progress further. So sleep is another impediment. So it's important that we should keep a watch on laziness, listlessness, and idleness, because it is all too easy to make excuse for ourselves. Laziness is unwillingness to apply mental energy, and listlessness is lack of enthusiasm. When attention refuses to be concentrated, that is listlessness. These situations arise when tamas, sattvic, rajasic, and tamas, these are three basic forces. When tamas takes over, which makes us unwilling or unable to summon up that effort. Now, sometimes somebody may have a physical illness, you may be tired, exhausted from the work, then at that time it's much better that you should either take a rest, or if you are not physically well, you're running fever, you might take treatment instead of sitting and meditating, because it will be difficult to focus. But otherwise, you need to summon up enough energy, drive to sit down and focus. If you can't do that, maybe you should go out for a walk, repeat your mantra, develop some more energy, then come back and sit for meditation. The fourth obstacle is doubt. It is not enough to have the will and energy to achieve concentration. One must also persevere with practice without any doubt. And these doubts come up very often when you sit down and you're not progressing well. You say, am I doing the right thing? Am I on the right path? Is this the correct mantra for me, what Swami gave to me? I can't focus every day. I sit down and my mind is always wandering. Maybe meditation is not right for me. Now, a wandering mind is a universal experience, especially for most of us who live in the West, where there is so much sensory stimulation all the time on television, on billboards, on the radio, on the newspapers. There's so much going on, and they're trying to tell you, you need to get this, you need to buy this, you deserve this, you have earned this thing in your life, you must go for this thing. And this sensory bombardment goes on. It's very difficult to detach your mind, take your mind away from all these sensory objects to sit down and meditate. But as time goes on, as you persevere, these things can improve. But as far as other doubts are concerned, am I following the right path? Is this the right mantra for me? Is meditation for me? For those, the remedy is that you got to have some faith. And number two, you should seek out holy company. You should have a spiritual teacher, a guru, or other companions, what we call co-pilgrims on this journey. So you need other people who believe in the same thing as you do so that you can all sit down and work together, or go to your guru and present your problems, and maybe he can help you. Now, as far as faith is concerned, it is an important ingredient in spiritual life. But faith is not just acceptance without questioning. That would be blind faith. And blind faith can be dangerous. Real faith requires that first we search for the message, search for the meaning of the message given to us, then gain some kind of understanding, and then accept that statement or message given to us. It is up to us to analyze and understand the teaching of the scriptures. And I repeat that, it is up to us to analyze and understand the teachings of the scriptures and the words of the spiritual teacher and find the truth in them. The strength of our faith will depend upon our realization of the truth contained in them, even if it be only intellectual, superficial. And meditation helps us to understand that truth. So it again works both ways. We cannot understand the truth unless we have tasted a little bit of that. But to taste a little bit of that, we really have to sit down and meditate. So we have to have some understanding of the truth to understand the bigger truth written in the scriptures. If we don't have that, it's very difficult to understand the bigger truth. So it's kind of, if you're trying to analyze how sweet is sugar and how sweet is saccharin and how sweet are all of the sweet things, you got to have some concept what is sweetness. Unless you don't know what is sweetness, how are you going to differentiate between and analyze the sweetness in all the different objects? How sweet is orange and how sweet is mango and how sweet is sugar and all those things. If you don't have any concept of sweetness, if your taste buds cannot really taste sweet, how are you going to analyze all that? So it kind of works both ways. In the beginning, our understanding of the truth may be fairly superficial. With meditation, with deep meditation, we will get kind of deeper realization of the truth. And that's where we are going. But in the beginning, even if we get a little realization of truth, that's better because that helps us to understand the scriptures better. And we can develop a deeper faith in the scriptures and what we are doing. So at that time, if somebody contradicts us, tells us you're doing the wrong thing, this is not correct, if we have enough faith, we can say, that's okay. We can agree to disagree. This is what I believe in, and I'm on the right track. So let's move on in our lives. And I'm going to focus on meditation, and you can focus on doing other things in your life. Now, Sri Ramakrishna, there's a good example here. He once shared his vision with Naren, who was later on Swami Vivekananda, and explained his vision to him. But Naren at that time was kind of wanted everything, proof of everything, like a scientific mind. So he said to Sri Ramakrishna, you said you had a vision. How do I know you had a vision? It could be hallucination. It could be your imagination. So why don't you prove it to me that it's a vision? So Sri Ramakrishna goes back to Divine Mother and says, Narendra says that I'm a little mad. Is this vision only my imagination? And he gets the answer, no, don't worry. So he returns back to Narendra and said to him, Mother has told me not to worry, so I'm not going to get upset what you say, so I don't believe you. Now this is a typical example of the depth of his faith in the reality of the mother. He just had that vision, he got the answer and told Narendra, you don't believe in that, that's okay. I have full faith in mother, and she said this is the vision, and that is it. Now many of the visitors that Sri Ramakrishna used to have were very highly educated people, educated means a lot of degrees and other physical knowledge. And they used to say a lot of things and ask a lot of questions which created doubt in Sri Ramakrishna's mind. But he came to realize that these people, despite their education and high places in the society, they lack insight. He recognized that he did not have much formal education and did not have any bookish knowledge, but then his appeal to the Divine Mother was all that he needed. It is simply not possible for anyone to shake that kind of faith that Sri Ramakrishna had. And if we can have little bit of that kind of faith in us, we will be able to overcome our doubts too. So that's the answer on faith. The answer to doubt is real faith. Next obstacle is clinging to sensory enjoyment, or what we call sensuality. And the emphasis here is on clinging, not just sensory enjoyment, because one does not have to be ascetic to meditate. Healthy sensory satisfactions are important for most of us who are living in this world, and we have to perform with our family and the society. A loving family, good food, good music, good company, all these things are very important for us to sustain ourselves. But the question here is the clinging. And clinging to various sensory enjoyments in many subtle ways can be an impediment to the progress. Many of us tend to dismiss them as harmless habits, but too many of them seemingly harmless enjoyments, when you combine them together, can become a wall of obstruction. In Gita, Sri Krishna says to Arjuna that those people will not succeed in meditation who eat too much or eat too little, who sleep too much or sleep too little, which means that we should have a moderation. Whatever we do, we should live in moderation. We should neither indulge our senses excessively nor mortify them excessively. We should have neither too much of wealth nor too much of poverty, neither too much of learning nor too much of ignorance, neither too much work nor too much idleness. We should follow a middle path and have a balanced mix of all our sensory needs and enjoyments, and that will help us to overcome some of these obstacles. The sixth obstacle is negative attitudes. Like internal enemies, this is also a very strong one because most of us have it. You can make your own list of negative attitude because we all have them. Some have small list and some have a big list. I give you a few and you can add many more to them, like prejudice, resentment, intolerance, arrogance, are some of the negative attitudes that most of us have, and they create ill will inside us. We develop a tendency to dislike, and not just dislike this or that, but simply dislike, period. Just dislike a lot of things. And that tendency tends to dwell in us and create more problems. For example, when we start to dislike different things, we then start asking questions. Why did he say this thing to me? What did he mean by it? We kind of start reading in between the lines and trying to analyze what everybody is saying. And I usually say, he probably means something to harm me. Why would he say this thing to me? He probably doesn't like me. And this thinking just goes on and on and on. So what happens is that we just develop a tendency to get upset. We make ourselves upsettable, emotionally fragile under stress. This attitude creates a great impediment to our progress in meditation, because every time you sit down to meditate and your mind is focused a little bit, a screen pops up, like you're on internet and television and you're getting some program and something pops up. Do you want to buy this? So you try to focus on meditation and then there's a pop-up. Oh, that's what he meant when he said something like this. Now then, instead of meditation, now you start making plans. So next time when I meet him, I'm going to say this to him. I'm going to handle this problem like this. What does he think of himself? And then the whole cycle goes on. And there goes the meditation out of the window, and now you're preparing it to fight with that person. So that's what negative attitude does to us. That's how it interferes with our meditation. And the way to solve that problem is basically try to, whenever those thoughts, negative thoughts come, you need to immediately stop there. Recognize them and say, no, this is not right. I'm not going to think more about it. Just move on in the direction. Because if you try to analyze that, why you have that negative thought, you're again caught in the negative cycle. At that time, you just need to move away. Also, sometimes just say, some people are like that, some people do that. Why do I need to bother myself? Maybe that person was not feeling well, maybe he didn't have his breakfast today, maybe his wife said something to him he didn't like and he's taking it on me, and there are hundreds of ways things can happen. So just, why should I upset myself on something what somebody says to me? And that way one can move on. And as you progress in your meditation, that will also help you to analyze this behavior in a positive way so that you don't dwell in the negative attitudes. Because as time goes on, these negative attitudes keep gaining more and more strength and keep entrenching themselves, and it becomes very difficult to eradicate them. Next one is desire for name and fame. And who doesn't have that desire? Everybody has that. But in a subtle way, this temptation does present a problem when you want to go in the direction of the spiritual life, because desire for name and fame makes you very egoistic. And you forget about being humble. If you move up in life, you need to become humble as well at the same time. Otherwise, the whole thing becomes imbalanced. The example is like, for example, if somebody possesses expert knowledge in a certain field, he becomes egoistic and inevitably expresses this egoistic in their daily relations with other people. You're sitting in a company, you're talking to different people, and you know that you're expert, and if somebody contradicts you, you become very angry. You get very upset. You expect people to respect you for your achievement or praise you for your achievement, and when they don't do that, then you feel offended. Your ego gets hurt. And then the negative attitudes of resentment, arrogance, all those things start building up. So one has to be careful when you move in that direction. And sometimes if name and fame comes to you, just make sure that you treat people in your daily life with loving affection so that you don't become egoistic, so that you remain humble. Once you lose humbleness, the name and fame can certainly destroy you because it can create problems for you. The next one is too much book knowledge. We all read a lot. We get a lot of book knowledge, which in the beginning is good because we need to read to understand. But reading too much, it leads us to basically have a lot of superficial knowledge, which is good for discussion, arguments, getting our way across, winning the arguments. It doesn't give us necessarily wisdom. That's the difference between knowledge and wisdom, that knowledge can be passed on, can be explained, can be described. But wisdom is something that you can live in. You cannot describe wisdom. You cannot give somebody wisdom. You can give knowledge, but not wisdom. Either you have wisdom or you don't have it. You can live in wisdom, but you cannot give wisdom to somebody. Knowledge can be given. So from the books, we can get knowledge, but not wisdom. Wisdom is once you live in that, what you are learning, that's wisdom. Example is a physician who smokes and drinks and eats a lot of red meat. What good is that knowledge that he has if he's not living that knowledge? So reading a lot in the beginning may be good, but as time goes on, one has to start putting the knowledge in practice. And the only way to put that knowledge in practice is through meditation, so that you can live through that knowledge. Otherwise, that knowledge is superficial, that reading is superficial. All it can do is help you win some argument with your friends. It's only through real knowledge, through wisdom, and not through relative knowledge that we can gain immortality. When ignorance and partial knowledge are both transcended, we reach the stage of ultimate truth. If we do not attain that, the rest of this is of little value. In our educated and highly enlightened society, people are busy collecting information which may be extremely useful in daily life, but it is only external knowledge. This reading and knowledge may bring some satisfaction and pleasure, but does not bring us any depth or wisdom. A great deal of bookish knowledge may be good for argumentation and discussion, but most of it is unnecessary and does not bring us closer to the truth. Meditation, introspection, contemplation, and self-analysis carried out regularly in our daily life will certainly bring us closer to God, who is the source of all knowledge, and practice of spiritual disciplines will also help us gain some insight in our daily living, and that's far more superior to any form of bookish knowledge. Now, I'm reminded here of a story. Swami Dayanand Saraswati, who started the movement called Arya Samaj in the North and West India, around the same time that Sri Ramakrishna was in Bengal. When he met his final guru, final teacher, he had taken a lot of books with him that he had been reading over umpteen years. So his guru told him that if you really want to learn anything from me, the first thing you have to do is unlearn yourself. Take all these books and put them in Ganges, put them in the river, let them go. Because you're carrying a dead weight. You won't be able to learn anything. So put all these books away, then come back and sit down with me and meditate, and I will tell you what to do. So a lot of times there's a lot of books, and I have my whole room full of books, and so have you. But a lot of books really, unless we start meditating, unless we start putting the knowledge into daily practice, that's a dead weight. And the ninth one, which is the last one, and I'm sure there are many more, I just picked 9 obstacles. That is hurry and tension. Hurry in a curry, or curry in a hurry. Often we may not even be aware that we are hurrying. If we have lived that way all our life and have been around people who hurry, it is difficult for us to see how fast everything moves. People say that modern life has grown so competitive and complicated, so busy and crowded, that we have to hurry even to survive. So we start the day with a hurry, live the day with a hurry, and end the day with a hurry. Which means when you go to bed, you're so tired, exhausted, you flop into bed saying, I need to go to bed because I have to get up tomorrow. I have so many things to do tomorrow. I'm behind. So you start the day with a hurry and end the day with a hurry. And we live in a hurry. We really do not have to accept this kind of style of living in a hurry. I'm sure we can achieve most of things in life by staying steady and following a relaxed pace. Do not have to do things in a hurry. The whole society is built upon the hurriness. Look at the fast food chain that we have. You can zoom in and zoom out with your food. You can go get a cup of coffee and run out. So everything is being done in a hurry. What happens is that initially our bodies do the speeding under our conscious direction. We run down the stairs, slam the doors, bolt into rooms, speed our automobiles, and it's mainly physical. But after a while, we become habituated to going faster and faster, faster and faster, and speed gradually takes over our mind. A kind of compulsive pressure builds up, and now we really have a problem because we are now type A personality. We just have to keep pushing. We cannot slow down. We cannot relax. We have to keep pushing. We push everybody else around us too, and that just goes on. And it's very hard to change such a behavior. Like, eye cannot observe its own functioning, its own working. So I cannot complain. Same thing is for the mind also. A rapid mind cannot take the time. It cannot take the time. It is going so fast. There is no time. So it cannot take the time to perceive its own rapidity, and that's what the problem is. And when the mind starts worrying, going fast, then person loses control of his thoughts and actions. And it's very difficult for such a person who's going so fast to say, okay, I'm going to sit down, cross-legged on the floor, close my eyes, and meditate. The engine is running fast. You have put your foot on the accelerator and other foot on the brakes, and it's going so fast. And then you want to sit down and meditate, it's almost impossible. My wife and I, we sometimes talk about it. Do you smell the roses? Do you see things? And a good example is in springtime, from Skinker going east on Highway 40, there are daffodils on both sides. How many people notice those daffodils in springtime? Not many people do. Because we're going so fast, we don't see things around us. We're just going and going. It reminds me that those of you who are kind of see those Star Wars and Star Trek kind of movies, and that starship, when it gets the very fast speed, then in the space, all the galaxies, they're like blobs on the side. You're going so fast, nothing exists in you. Everything is around you is basically blob. So when we're going so fast, the people around us, we really don't notice them. They're just like blob. We're just trying to avoid hitting them because we're going so fast. So we just have enough attention to avoid hitting them. So most of what we do, we shove our way in front of the people. When they're reaching out for something, we get in their way. When they're trying to leave the room, we switch out the lights before they leave the room. We squeeze by them when they're at the door to get ahead of them. So we do all kinds of things because we're in such a hurry, we really don't notice them. They are there or not there. We are on our fast track, on our spaceship. And when they're watching something on television, we keep talking. We have our own thing to say to them, even though they're not interested. So it just goes on and on. And all this because we're in such a hurry that we really do not see them. We really do not notice them. And we also need to remember that hurry is contagious. When we are in a hurry, we make everybody else around hurried. And that's why we have all those fast food chains. Everybody's running in a hurry. We are just being infected by this rash hurriness. And maybe that's the problem for the road rage too, which we are seeing a lot these days. People in such a hurry, they don't have time to slow down. Nobody wants to slow down to let somebody else merge in the lane. And if somebody gets in front of you, you start getting very angry. There is something else that we are seeing as psychiatrists very often these days called attention deficit and hyperactivity disorder, ADHD. They're always in a rush, these kids. They cannot slow down. They cannot focus on one thing. They're thinking of 10 things at the same time. Sitting in the class, they're thinking of too many things. On the playground, they're thinking of other things. So the diagnosis of this condition is becoming very common these days. And I think that's a product of that their parents are in hurried. They are taught hurry right from the beginning, from the childhood as they're growing up. Nobody has patience. Parents don't have patience. So they're rushing. And the child also grows up in a hurry. Rush. And we talk about attention deficit disorder here. So that's one explanation. Of course, there are a lot of biological and chemical explanations for those illnesses too. And some people get helped by Ritalin and others don't because there are a lot of other problems. So, in conclusion, I just said 9 difficulties. I'm sure there are a lot more obstacles that we can all talk about. In conclusion, we must be aware of the fact that by choosing to lead a spiritual life, we are swimming against the current. The whole world is going in one direction, down the current, and we who want to meditate are going upstream, going in the opposite direction. And this is our decision. A lot of those people who have lived with us will remind us that you're going the wrong way. You need to come with us, go this way. You're going the opposite direction. And you have to have a courage to say to them, yes, I know where I'm going. It's not where you are going, but I'm on the right way. If we have enough faith, we can say it to them. Along with the faith, we also need to choose our company very wisely so that we can meet with those people who are going the way we are going. We should try to find company of people who are sincere, pure, and spiritual. Like they say, that if you want to succeed in the business world, or in politics, or academic world, you need to associate with the right kind of people. If you want to go up the ladder, you have to meet with the right people in the politics, right people in the university, right people in the business world. Similarly, if we want to make a progress in spiritual life, we have to seek out the company of holy people who meditate regularly and can be a source of great strength and help to us to identify the obstacles that come our way. Obstacles facing each of us are very much our own and distinct for each one of us, and they vary from person to person. But at the same time, we have to remain vigilant because pitfalls are very common. And when we have a pitfall, at that time, instead of giving up, instead of crying, we should say, well, mistakes happen. Let's recognize it, let's correct it, and move on. Not give up. Now, it is said in one of the Upanishads, and I quote, "Those who have developed their spiritual life, those who became spiritually great, became great because they meditated. Whereas ordinary men spend their time in gossiping, arguing, infighting, and finding fault with others. They don't progress." And when Upanishads conclude any passage, a good passage, they usually say, therefore, practice meditation. And that's the last word, practice meditation. Thank you.
I'll close with a prayer. Sahana bhavatu, sahana punaktu, saha viryam karavavahai, tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May Brahman, the supreme, all-pervading spiritual reality, protect us. May he guide us. May he give us strength and right understanding. May love and harmony be with us all. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.